What is up, everybody? Joe Quills here with you. It is a Thursday night. I need my glasses on. Time for another edition of the Joe Quills Show. And got a lot to talk about here because I took off Tuesday night. But yeah, got a lot to talk about here. Some interesting things here, a little there, a little everywhere. Gonna turn the TV down because I got the baseball game on here. Ready to switch it off over to the World Cup right now, where we have Mexico taking on Korea, South Korea, that is. They're playing right now, 0-0 early on. Canada put an epic beat down on Qatar. Hopefully gasoline prices don't go up. Um, but yeah, so I mean, lot of stuff going on right now. Um, Also, I'm going to show something very interesting out of Philly because you know about the Rocky statue curse. Well, apparently Brazil is having no part of that. We'll get to that. Um, also, uh, the Golden Knights have a new head coach. We'll get into that. Um, and we may go out of order here because I'm not really that ready for that tonight. But so we got that. Um, The new MLB proposal to the Players Association, total garbage. I'll tell you what happened on there. You might want to check Sauce Gardner's ID. Some funny stuff there. Makes you wonder if he's not from America, from somewhere down in the Caribbean, where, for example, in baseball, it is common that players are a couple years older than what they are, or vice versa, whatever it is. But um, and tell me if you haven't heard this before. Mike Trout goes on the injured list, so we'll talk about that as well. So right now it is 6-3 Mets in the seventh. Apparently, Mets fans. There are some Mets fans that did not go to the Knicks parade today. They celebrated their championship today, and hey, it is what it is. Um, so I came up with an interesting observation either yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday, but it might have been today. You know how when we get to end of August, well, middle of August, depending on what part of the country you're in, or uh, up to around Labor Day here in the Northeast, you ever notice that the thing is now with social media is everybody to hold their sign that says "My first day of school," blah 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 blah, and whoever I stole that from yesterday, I think I gotta check it because I think it was yesterday. Um, Let me see here. Uh, I must not have. Okay, I must not have shared it, at least on Facebook. I think I saw it. I showed my buddy yesterday and said it laughed. So, why is it that parents don't share pictures of their kids going to summer school? Hmm. Just a point to ponder. So, or the parents holding up the sign says, "I raised an idiot," but you know, but yeah. So yeah, I never really thought about that. And I'm surprised I didn't come up with that question years ago. But It was just a random thought that came up yesterday or today, and yeah, so that's what it was today. So that's why the title is what it is tonight, because you have to understand my sense of humor, and that's what we're here for, to have some fun, joke around, all that fun stuff. Um, so one thing I did see today, um, I think every city that is hosting the World Cup, at least in the United States and probably Canada, Mexico, they can do their own thing. Um, at least in the United States, um, and I know that because Philadelphia is a host of 6 games. I think it's 6. Um, they have a fan fest, and the fan fest is out on, I think it's Lemon Hill. It's up. It's you know up by where the bike race used to be. But yeah, so I've been thinking about going to Fan Fest. I have to look into it, because if I can just walk up and pay to get in, then fine. But I'm not going to have to pay in advance, because no, my luck, it's probably sold out. And there's all kinds of problems here in Philadelphia, because you have um, the residents in that area of where the Fan Fest is. They have had to get special parking permits, so that in the event that somebody tried to park there that doesn't live there, they would tow those illegally parked cars, because they do something like that to keep the residents happy. It's kind of like in South Philadelphia. They have because parking is so scarce, because when there's no such thing as driveways or anything like that in South Philly. Like you go where I am in the Northeast, almost every street has a back alleyway, driveway set up where you can, if you really need to, you can park your car out back or in your garage or whatever. But with South Philly, you don't. And in Fairmount area, I think that's the area I'm talking about. Um, you have you had to get these special passes, and I think it's like 130 residents have gotten tickets, even though they've had either proof to the state that they got their tickets, that they got their pass, or uh, or that either they got their pass, or they registered that they have proof with whoever is giving out these tickets, um, you know, or that's supposed to be issuing these passes, have done all this. So, but but the Philadelphia Parking Authority, I guess, who's handling the um, ticketing and all that, they ended up ticketing about 130 people. So, but that leads to what I saw today. Now, mind you, it was very windy here today, and I think Juan Soto of the Mets got 2 very wind-aided home runs at Citizens Bank Park today. At least I think he did. But um, they had to close Fan Fest today because it was too windy. Now, granted, the wind was blowing about 40, 45 miles an hour. I mean, now the one thing is with me, I ran to the store this afternoon because I was putting it off all week, and I shouldn't have. But I did enough where I didn't have to do what I mean, I did what I had to do. So I ran to the store and, got what I needed. I'm not a person that's going to get 100, 250 worth of groceries. I'll get my essential stuff and come home. And I knew it was windy as hell because um, I didn't like the way I bagged my stuff. And thankfully at Acme, I could bag my own stuff. Um, Giant, you can do the same for the most part, but ShopRite, they will hip check you 3 lanes down to the side so that their bagger can bag your stuff. When all all that ShopRite has to do, at least in the past, is set up a line or two where you can bag your own shit. Whereas you have all these other lines where you have a bagger there because the baggers don't know how to bag. Plain and simple. They're there just though I'm just making my $10 an hour or whatever they're paying, or 15 or whatever, or whatever the minimum wage is in collective bargaining. But then again, it's probably a UFCW 1776 plant, a shop, and UFCW is the worst union known to man, aside from TWU 234, because TWU 234 is the bus drivers union for SEPTA, and you know the SEPTA drivers are fucking criminals, plain and simple. But um, but yeah, so they did all that, but I did see this today, and I didn't print the article up for this. It was on the Inquirer, and I shared it onto my Facebook. So if you're Facebook friends with me, you would have seen this. But apparently, now we all know about the curse of the Rocky statue. You dress up the Rocky statue, your team's going to lose. And I kind of shared that on Monday night. Well, Ecuador on Saturday dressed up the Rocky statue in an Ecuador uniform. And we all know what happened. Ivory Coast scored a late goal to win 1-0. Well, Ecuador thinks, as they play their next match in another city, they're thinking, well, we pissed off Rocky. We're going to make amends. So what they did, they think that the curse lasts more than one game. So they thought many blame fans who draped the iconic statue of the Italian stallion in their signature yellow jersey. This action triggered the Pennsylvania Tourism Office to officially alert teams worldwide. Philadelphia can't wait to host you. Rocky does not need your kit, the statement said. The warning came too late for Ecuadorian native Gigio Benavides, who had spent a week hand-making a version of his team's jersey with loved ones just to place it on Rocky on June 13th, the day before the Ecuadorian loss. Those are in Philadelphia. You even saw it on the news. I saw it scanning different sites because I was up in North Jersey. But Ecuador lost 1-0, and once again, the Rocky statue messed with everything. So 5 friends who make school uniforms for a living helped him bring the yellow shirt to life by using a 2XL shirt template. They left the sides open to ensure the statue's lifted arms would fit, and his aunt sewed clips on the side in case more room was needed. That was good because Rocky was really, really muscular, Benavides said. To top it off, Rocky's name on the back with the inscription. They added Rocky's name on the back with the inscription, dream transcended make history. So Benavides traveled 26 hours and 3,000 miles from a small town in Loja, Ecuador, to Philadelphia 30th Street Station, but not before telling his friends that if they saw the shirt, to know that he made it. He arrived before sunset on Saturday, hours before Ecuadorians flooded the Museum of Art steps. My only concern at the time were not offering the people of Philadelphia or getting in legal trouble for putting the shirt on him. Yeah, we don't care if you do something like that. It's just that, we believe in fuck around and find out, even though our team wasn't playing in Philly. So when Benavides made it to the steps, the statuary had flags on, so he figured the shirt would only add to Rocky's glory. It wasn't until hours later, when hate messages began pouring in, that he realized his mistake. Now everyone says I'm bad luck. So amid the death threats and cruel messages, falling asleep proved a challenge, but he chose to look at the bright side. Maybe Ecuador could break Rocky's curse and set the city free. But Sunday morning, that hopefulness had turned into a need for survival, yet the full weight of the curse didn't fall on the shoulders until he arrived into the stadium. Now, the link, which is now Philadelphia Stadium for the World Cup, was an ocean of yellows. Many Ecuadorian influencers had already put a target on him by posting his name online. Luckily, his seat happened to be in a section where most of the spectators were not Ecuadorian. He sat between two men, one from Boston and the other from Brazil. As Ivory Coast faced Ecuador, Benavides felt himself sweating, seeing the score fixed at 0. The continuous tie by halftime made him feel a dose of relief. I thought, if the curse is true, but we tied 0-0, then maybe we avoid it. Either way, we must break it, because my life is on the line. 1 minute before the 90-minute mark, Ivory Coast scored, leaving Benavides sobbing in his seat. The hate worried Benavides, but nothing hurt more than the feeling his good intentions had cursed his beloved team. I was crying so much that the guys from Brazil and Boston hugged me. They keep saying, it's okay, man, it's okay. But feeling like a truck hit him, Benavides stayed seated as fans left stadium, wondering what would happen next. But the storm and drops falling on his face didn't allow him much time for reflection. By Monday, videos of Ecuadorians offering beer and encebollado, a traditional Ecuadorian fish soup, said to cure hangovers, to Rocky for him to lift the curse, went viral. Other Ecuadorians, I really didn't read this from beginning to end, but this is some weird, some wild stuff here. So other Ecuadorian fans turned the curse to their favor in putting Germany's shirt on Rocky ahead of their match in New York on June 25th. Here's the thing, the game's not in Philly, so I don't think that works. So the Pennsylvania Tourism Office said on their Instagram post that won't work because the statue will know. Benavides did not attend, returning to plead with Rocky, but he did walk around the city before traveling to New Jersey, witnessing some of the fans himself. Seeing everyone so caught up in the game made me realize how much soccer helps us free ourselves from heavy things happening, Benavides said. So it's okay if I have to take the fall. Let's not forget to still have hope and send good vibes to the team. But so this was from La Casa del Delatri. It is an Ecuadorian theme here. I think that's the Ecuadorian fan page. But here's from their Instagram.
Te esperaré, sé que me quieres y yo seré tu adoración. Cebollado, el cebollado para Rocky.
So that's what they did there. And then there was a second one on here. And here is a second video here. This was by Andrew Rowan 128. He tagged that site here. He's a reporter for NBC Philly. He usually covers transportation, but here's a story that he did.
What does it take to undo the curse of the Rocky statue? I'm Andrew. I'm standing at probably one of the most recognizable spots in Philadelphia. Ecuador fans are leaving peace offerings for Rocky after they got cursed last weekend.
Sorry to Philadelphia. Sorry to Rocky for these guys didn't know any better. I fixed it. I hope, we're at peace. We make amends.
The curse is very simple. Rocky is only wearing boxers. Don't put your colors, if you're not from Philadelphia, on our statue. Ecuador fans had a pep rally here last weekend. They dressed Rocky up in their colors, and then they went to the World Cup and they lost 1-0. And if you look at the stats for American football against the Eagles, it doesn't look good. We're not going to talk about these two games. So let me know in the comments, is this a real thing? Do you believe in the Rocky curse? I don't know what they're doing, but as long as they don't put their colors on the statue, they'll be fine. What is it?
So there you go. Yes. So there is a couple of games where the curse didn't work, but I don't think it's a work. But I don't think the curse is a thing too much. But but in the throes of a playoff run for the Eagles, if some fan base does that, I'll be like, yeah, I will be like, haha, you're gonna lose, something like that. But nothing really too. But but I think they probably believe in curses more and more spiritual with being a third world country and stuff like that. So but yeah, so I can see why they would do that. But so that leads me to my next post, and this was Brazil today, and this is from the Philadelphia Union's YouTube. I mean, not YouTube, their Instagram, because Brazil is in town. They're going to be destroying Haiti tomorrow night. And this is what they did. So they actually have they have Brazilian fans taking no chances. They have it roped off. They have in Portuguese not to mess with the Rocky statue. So, so that's what they're doing with that. Now, I thought there was a video here as well. Let me see here. Okay. So here is from the Philadelphia Union, Brazil taking over Philadelphia and the Rocky statue at the Art Museum, that area. I'm going to let this play silently here, and we'll go back to the beginning here. Matter of fact, let's do that. You're not getting near the Rocky statue. See, the Rocky statue is bare, but I'm sure you probably have a couple of people from Brazil roping that off and stuff like that. But that's so that is some stuff there as well. So. Um, One second here. One moment. Okay, there we go. I just had to ban somebody. So, and here's the thing. You want to mess with the Rocky statue, if you're a visiting team playing one of my Philly teams, yeah, go right ahead. I don't care. But, but I'm sure that some teams will actually, when it comes to soccer, that's what makes it interesting here, is because we have a case where, Ecuador fucked up. They FAFO'd. They fucked around and found out. I think Brazil is too damn good, even in a down year, that they would not get hit by the curse like Ecuador did, because you're playing Haiti. It's not like you're playing Germany, but I digress with that. But some interesting stuff there. But but I'm not necessarily a believer of curses like that. But maybe I need to do a Danhausen picture where he's like sitting behind Rocky, and somebody's putting a jersey on Rocky, and he goes, "You are cursed," or something to that effect. I don't get the arm gestures right, but you get the idea. So, so maybe I can promote that with whomever, but Danhausen may be too busy with New York. But so I did see here tonight. Well, I actually saw it a couple of days ago, but I did see tonight some additional stuff on it that contradicted my original thoughts. Well, as we all know, the Knights lost in 6 to the Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. Congrats to the Hurricanes. And John Tortorella, who went in for 8 games, got 30 because he got the team all the way to the Stanley Cup final. He's gone. And Ryan Craig, who coached in Henderson, their AHL affiliate, takes over as the head coach. Now, the way that the contract was, it was just until June 30th. So technically, he wasn't fired, but he was told, we don't need you any further. So they moved on from John Tortorella. That was on Tuesday. Yesterday, they announced that Ryan Craig, who coached the AHL affiliate, will take over the NHL team. He'll be a first-time NHL head coach, which is pretty rare in the NHL because you get retread upon retread upon retread. I mean, you got a pool of like 40, 45 coaches that always seem to end up in another city. Kind of like Rick Tocchet. He's in that group now. I mean, he's coached 3 or 4 teams. But so Craig played for 3 teams over his 8 years. His career ended in 2017. He transitioned into coaching a couple of months later. So he never played for Vegas, but his connection to front office goes back to his time playing junior hockey with the WHL Brandon Wheat Kings. He was a 2-year captain there. He played 5 seasons for the Wheat Kings at a time when current Golden Knights general manager Kelly McCrimmon was Brandon's GM and franchise co-owner. So, that's, and we bring it back to everyday life. Never burn bridges, because you never know when you cross paths with that person again. And also, he takes over as GM. He's the head coach for the minor league team, and they like what they're seeing with their guys and making sure the guys are ready when they get their call up to the NHL. So, he did what he had to do in Henderson, and he proved himself, and he's getting that opportunity. Now, Craig did guide the Silver Kings to the Calder Cup playoffs this season. And by the way, the Calder Cup playoffs are still going on. And the AHL this year got very lucky because you have the Chicago Wolves and the Toronto Marlies playing for the Calder Cup. You don't have, for example, Henderson playing Hershey, where you got to hop on a flight for 5 hours to play games. So, but this is the third coach that they're going to have in like 3 months, because Bruce Cassidy got fired, Tortorella was interim, and now Craig. Bruce Cassidy was fired with 8 games to go in the regular season. Tortorella was hired, and he won 7 of the 8 regular season games. Then they went to the postseason. They advanced to the finals after defeating Utah, Anaheim, and Colorado. So for a guy who was interim, he got a bunch of guys who were willing to play for him. And I think that time of the year, where there's only 8 games left, you can't say, oh, I don't like this guy, get me out of here. You're stuck there until July when the new season starts. So, or I should say the new calendar year. So, you have all this stuff, and they responded well, and they even took a 2-1 lead in a Stanley Cup final against Carolina. But Carolina woke up, They changed goalies. In the end, they changed goalies actually during Game 3, and they ended up winning. I mean, nothing. I mean, Carolina did what I expect them to do, even though I was rooting for Vegas. Um, but Tortorella's deal was just till June 30th, so he's basically there just as interim. Now, I just thought this was okay. You're here for 8 games plus the playoffs, and that's it. But apparently, as I see here, Kelly McCrimmon had said about Tortorella that he saved the season. He turned the team around. Our players loved playing for him, and it was a tremendous 30 games that he coached for our organization. John wanted to coach our team again this year. Now, he had gone into TV side of things, but every once in a while you get that itch again, and you think you're done, you get that itch, and then you're back. Well, I think he was thinking he's retired. He moved down to Florida, and he gets the call or a text. I mean, because I think if Tortorella said early on, is like, how the hell did you get my number? Something to that effect. But Tortorella does want to coach, but they wanted to give the opportunity to Ryan Craig, who was with Henderson this past season. So, I'll tell you what, I think even if that was set in stone from the very beginning, Tortorella does what he has to do to say, hey, I'd love to come back, offer me something, but Vegas wanted to go a different way here. And, and it's hard to get your foot in the door as a head coach in the NHL because of the fact that if you think about it, you rarely hear somebody outside the local market saying, who the fuck is that guy? When a head coach is hired. I mean, my God, even with the Flyers, most of the time, they hire the best Flyers alum for the job. They got away from that. I mean, they even went with Tortorella there for a couple of years. But you do have that opportunity to coach, but I mean, I understand why he wanted to return, but you get that itch. It's like, hey, I still have it. And maybe the Flyers was like, maybe the way that things ended with him in Philly, it was like, I ain't going back. Screw this. I'm done. I'll do the TV thing. So I guess that's, but I'm sure he can get his TV job back, no problem, if he wants to go back into TV, because TV's only a couple of days a week. And then on top of that, you can watch video for a couple of hours or whatever you need to do. And I'm sure he pretty much knows most of the guys anyway, from being here in Philly recently and being in Vegas this past season. So, but yeah, I mean, so I thought it was just 30 games, but yeah, I mean, even though the contract was just till June 30th, he did want to come back. And I guess they just said, we did say till the end of June, And yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't call it a firing because I don't think that's fair. I think it's more contract completed than it is anything else. So it's not a firing because, you know, but he did try to get his job back. So even though he didn't really have a job to return to because of the fact that his contract was up. So, but now, if you're in Vegas, I'm imagining that you will be able to bet Thistledown on Saturday. And that's what I'll be talking about on Saturday. It's Ohio Derby Day. And we'll be looking at that race, and I'll sneak in a couple of other races as well. The Ohio Derby is a field of 11. 5 horses from the Triple Crown races this year. They're going to be running in the Ohio Derby, including Oselli, who finished 3rd in the Derby. And hopefully we'll have a good race, and hopefully we get guys some more winners. So tune in to Also Eligible on these same channels, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and go sports. I don't know why I said that, but I did. But anyways, so yeah, so I'm keeping an eye on the I'm keeping an eye on everything with the and it looks like the Mets catcher took one in what we call the testicles. Yeah, he did. Ooh, a double. Grazed at first, and it bounced up and hit him again. So I can hear the trainer in the conversation they're having. Are you okay? I'm okay. But yeah, so the one thing is I'm keeping track mentally of what's going on with the collective bargaining, especially being at union jobs for the last 30 some years, both in the worst union known to man, UFCW 1776, as well as with IBW. And actually, and being as a union steward, knowing a little bits here and there about what's going on there. And then on top of that, add the fact that I did have labor law in Drexel, going for my master's degree. So, and especially because it's baseball, and this is the sport that I've grown to love. And I mean, this is the first sport that I played, and this is the sport that if when my grandfather was alive, because he had a corner house. Well, they didn't technically have a corner house, but but with the building of I-95, and I'm imagining eminent domain and getting rid of a couple of houses down closer towards the corner, it turned out they became the corner house. The ramp to I-95 was right next to it, so they ended up becoming the corner house, and the area underneath 95, which was right next door to their house, was where I learned how to play baseball. Swing the bat, throw the ball, all that. I mean, my dad did the same thing too, but my grandfather, he would take me to the lot and throw baseballs to me for like a half an hour, And then after that, we go listen to the Phillies game until it was time for me to go to bed. I remember that. So I did all that, and um, you know, so baseball is, even though football may be the one that I am most passionate about, will scream about the most at my TV. And let me change things up here because the Phillies lost to the New York Mets 6-4. And by the way, no Phillies game tomorrow because of the World Cup. And, it's just that you have two stadiums about maybe 500 feet from each other, and they share the same parking lot. So there's no way you could have all these. You can do it, but it's a logistical nightmare. And they were saying even with 17,000 people taking SEPTA from Center City or wherever they were staying, all these people down to the stadium, there was still a traffic nightmare with everybody taking Uber and Lyft because not everybody knew that got off at 30th Street, and they didn't realize, we can go across the street, hop on the L, take it eastbound to City Hall or 15th Street, and then, by the way, we can take this free interchange to the Broad Street line or the B line, the orange train, and take that down to South Philly. Some people didn't realize that. So, and by the way, if you're going from the game back home, that ride's free the way back from the end of the game, from halftime to like an hour or two after the game. But they don't. There's no game tonight, or no game tomorrow night because of the World Cup. But in regards to the MLB, and we're going to see stuff like this probably every couple of weeks until the end of till December 1st, when we have either a new collective bargaining agreement or we have some type of a work stoppage, whether it's a strike or a lockout, and probably be a lockout more than a strike. I think the players will basically be saying, hey, keep talking to us. But it seems like the Players Association is cutting more costs, doing whatever they can to cut and cut and cut, and really hurt now the younger people that are going to be making that possibility to at least getting drafted. Now, I will say this. The way that they want to do this, and I'll get to some of the proposals that are on here, do not like them one bit. And I think what you will see here, I think it's all just, not only is it just things that aren't necessarily needed, I think also it's, we're gonna protect college baseball all of a sudden, even though we didn't care about it for many, many years. But so Major League Baseball today proposed widespread changes to its amateur entry system that cuts signing bonuses by more than $150 million annually. That alone will keep the Players Association from agreeing to it. It'll make high school players ineligible for the domestic draft and institute an international draft, according to what was told by sources to ESPN. Now, this was made at a collective bargaining agreement meeting, and you're going to have meetings probably maybe a day or two a week this time, but as we start getting closer to the end, like probably in September, maybe October, you'll start seeing them going every day. And then and then in November, it'll be like nonstop. They'll be in there like 18 hours a day, maybe 24 a day. But so now what they're going to do, they're calling for the domestic draft to be shortened from 20 to 12 hard slotted rounds, whatever that means. I guess that's just 12 times 30 teams, I guess. And the amateur signing bonus pool will be nearly halved to 200 million, according to sources. There's no way the Players Association will agree to us, because not only are you taking money away, you're also preventing them from growing and bringing new people into the fold earlier, or more people into the fold the moment that they're drafted, which, that will only be 360 draftees, not 600. Even though, even the minor leagues are unionized, but they're trying to bust the union and everything like that right now. So the amateur entry plan comes after MLB's initial proposal to institute a salary cap system to govern the game. Now, could I be talked into a salary cap? Maybe. I think there's other ways around it first. Like, for example, if you're going to put in a salary cap, you need a salary floor. Then, on top of that, you need to stop deferring contracts. Because that's how the Dodgers have won the last 2 years. It's not that they're spending $400, $500, $600 million a year. It's deferring money. Because guess what? I mean, let's call it what it is. The Shohei Ohtani contract, that was just to protect their asses in case Shohei ended up gambling, because they would have only lost $2 million. Actually, they wouldn't have lost any of that money, but it would only cost them $2 million towards the luxury tax. I think you're getting to the point now where a lot of times you don't have, some of these owners just don't care about this salary tax. It's like, hey, we're going to win. We're going to do whatever we can to win. That's what they're doing. So, now, so this is the highest stakes bargaining in a generation. Players are vehemently opposed to a cap. I think the one thing Major League Baseball needs to do, and this may be the basis of my streaming for Out of the Park Baseball when I start that up. And I keep teasing, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. You have to realize that, there's going to be a stoppage. And, in my case, I think the best way to get teams to spend, in my opinion, is promotion relegation. Now, it's never going to happen. But let's think about this. You're a proud franchise, even though you got an owner who's an asshole like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay? Let's say they careen to the bottom of the standings just like they do mostly every year. Imagine going to game 162 at home. You need a win to stay alive and stay in that top tier. But you end up losing and you end up getting relegated to AAA, or as I would call it in my stream once I get it going, League One. Imagine that. Imagine having to play in the second tier. I mean, the Premier League and all the other leagues in Europe, they play that international calendar where they start like in August and they play till about May. If you get one of those games where a team ends up getting relegated on the final day, look at the fans at the end. Some are looking like this. Some are ready to rip. Some are ready to rip all the chairs out of the stadium. Some fans are ready to do all kinds of criminal acts to the stadium and stuff like that. You name it. But the difference is between soccer or football, for example, in the UK, and baseball is fans just won't show up in baseball. Soccer, they'll still show up. So I don't know what you would do, but imagine losing on the final day and you end up getting relegated to AAA, or what I would call it is League One when I start gaming. Imagine having to do that. So at least that's what I would do. Now, so the Players Association chafed at the MLB amateur proposal, saying the proposals fall woefully short and players would lose $1 billion over the course of the next 5 years, including $400 million from this year to 2027. Now, here's one thing to remember, and this is something that I was saying because I was saying for years that the salary bubble is going to burst because everybody's cutting the cord and everything like that, and then you had bad regional sport network deals. The regional sport network deal has run its course. Regional sports network thing has run its course, and they probably should have stayed as a national thing and not going to regional. But you did have everything here. So, but when you hear when they talk about this, I would say September, October, November, where they say, oh, Major League Baseball lost $150, $200 million. Let's make a number up like that. 150, 200, whatever it is. Whatever they give you. Okay? That's the 30 teams combined. Now, you may have a team like Los Angeles who gets 4 million fans a year, probably, or thereabouts. They're probably making money. But there are some teams, especially that were part of the whole Bally Sports, FanDuel Sports Network stuff that they had back even when it was Fox Sports, the regional Fox Sports networks. those teams are the ones that mostly suffer because they lost the revenue, and then on top of that, they went bankrupt, those networks. They tried to save it, they couldn't save it, they sold, and now those teams are doing a lot of streaming stuff. So, but you do have the Yankees and Mets have their regional sports network that's still around. Philly still has theirs for a couple more years, I would imagine, until that goes under. But you do have little things here that, we do have these warning signs. We did have these red flags. And, you can't ignore, I know that some of these teams are losing money because they're planning on, we're getting $40-50 million a year from this regional sports network deal. And now, instead of getting 50, we're getting 10. I'm making a number up in this streaming deal that we have to do to make sure that our fans watch our games. So you're losing. The loss of money in a lot of cases is losing money that you were expecting to get. And you're planning out that balance sheet. You have everything. You're expecting to make X amount of money. Oh, by the way, now everything falls apart. So when you hear towards the summer, later in the summer, beginning of fall, Major League Baseball lost X amount of dollars, there are a couple of teams that have great attendance, have a regional sports network that still works. They're making money hand over fist, but there's all those teams that are have-nots, that don't draw in that money, that revenue from broadcasting, like the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies, the Dodgers. You get the idea. So now the Players Association did say today that MLB made another set of proposals that are flat out bad for baseball, one that would cripple the next generation of players and damage the future of the game. Yeah, I agree. Now, but here's the thing. You're going to go with some of the more outlandish proposals early on. Now, they could have been talking for a couple of years on and off informally, but the important, the official bargaining began last week or 2 weeks ago. But they're pretty much doing whatever they can. So, but the most pertinent elements of the MLB proposal, which, like some of the things I don't like, the minimum draft age to 20 for domestic players and raising the minimum age for international players from 16 to 18. Okay, well, why is it all of a sudden that this is a problem for young kids? Now, just like it's just like, no matter what you look at it, I think baseball, the way that it is, and, we can go into socioeconomics and all that stuff here. NBA, especially players within the United States, they're looking for the bag, and they knew that that most players are not mentally mature enough to be in the league. They may be physically mature, but they may not be mentally mature to be in the league. And that's why they have the 19-year-old or 1 year out of high school rule. Football has a 3-year rule. Now, why do they have the 3-year rule? That rule is there to protect kids coming out of high school. Now, you can argue, oh, it's so that they can go to college football, get an education. But think about it. It's about protecting kids. Because if you had a kid, and he can be a LeBron James type football player, because LeBron James was a high school kid that went right to the NBA and did not fail. For every LeBron James, there's 20 guys that failed in the NBA before they amended that rule. Now, in high school, you have the option. You get drafted at 18, or when you graduate high school, which is usually around 18. You get drafted, you got time to sign, or you go to college. You go to college, you're going to be there 3 years. So but I don't, maybe I'm missing something here in terms of the socioeconomics of it, but there is a wrinkle here that I haven't mentioned yet that we'll get to. And all of a sudden, Major League Baseball is protecting something. But so other things here. Now, what you can do, what you would be able to do, and I wouldn't be. There's one thing I'd like to see, maybe trade draft picks. So they said the ability to trade all draft picks, but only for the following draft. So let's say, the 2028 draft picks could not be dealt until the end of the 2027 draft, with no dealing of back-to-back first-round choices. So you trade that 2028 pick, you can't trade 29, but you can trade 30. But whatever. Maximum signing bonus for $10,000 for undrafted players, with international players who make a full season minor league affiliate receiving a $30,000 bonus, and domestic players receiving a $30,000 bonus if teams want to remove them from eligibility for the Rule 5 draft after the second season. So that some of the stuff there is a little blurry to me, and now they're going to reduce the draft lottery picks from 6 to 4. Now, do teams tank in baseball? Yes. Do they tank for draft picks? No. They're tanking so that they can get prospects, that sort of thing. It's like, oh, we'll trade you Mike Trout if he wasn't injured, and you give us these 3 prospects. So that's what you would, that's the tanking that Scott Boras said happened. And all of a sudden we have a draft lottery, which was totally not needed in baseball, in my opinion. If you want to stop tanking in sports, bring in promotion and relegation. That'll fix things real fast. Because instead of tanking for the worst record, you're tanking for mediocrity, just so you can stay in that top realm. So, and they also want to eliminate competitive balance picks currently awarded annually to lower revenue and smaller market teams. And the reason why they want to do that is because of the salary cap, because we won't need that anymore. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to have a situation here where this could be a long standing, potential long-standing lockout or strike. Let's just call it a work stoppage because it depends on what one declares first. You know, the union will say, "Oh, we're on strike." No, we locked you out. It's a matter of who says what first, in my opinion. But so MLB said in a statement, and here's the part that they're protecting here, which I don't agree with. The league framed its proposal in the meeting as a response to evolving dynamics in college baseball and continued international corruption. Now, there are issues with the international game. There's always been issues with the international, but college baseball, ding, 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 ding. That's why they made this proposal 20 years old, because you can make money doing the college thing. I think, in my opinion, even though NIL can be a good thing if you're a player, even though it turns into another minor league, if you think about it, you're looking at a way to say they're not our problem for 2 more years. So they said in a statement here, over the last couple of years, college baseball has undergone a remarkable transformation. Expanded scholarships, NIL opportunities, revenue sharing, and significant investments in facilities and player development have made college baseball an increasingly important pathway that is producing major league ready talent at an accelerated rate. Today's top programs provide players with resources, competition, and national exposure that were unimaginable a decade ago. Our proposal is designed to build on that momentum to benefit the game at the college, minor league, and major league levels. You don't have to protect college baseball, because truthfully, I think if Major League Baseball really wanted to, and this is part of my argument why Major League Baseball should go promotion and relegation. Every once in a while you hear that they're trying to get rid of the minor leagues, because they did have that shrinkage in 2020. And I did see that AJ Brzezinski, on whatever podcast that he's a host of or co-host, he mentioned something about it a couple of years ago. I never watched it, but there was something along those lines. But I think Major League Baseball could do that. But here in America, we aren't about promotion, relegation, stuff like that. What our sports are based on is a farm system setup, which I believe gets credited to Branch Rickey, because he also gets credited with breaking color barrier with bringing Jackie Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers. And it may be somebody else who gets credit for the farm system, and if I'm wrong, so be it. But you do have, the farm system where you develop, especially in baseball, you develop the players, and at the top level, you stash some of those. Like for example, in AAA, you have what's called quad A players. They're too good for AAA, but they're not good enough for Major League Baseball. But a lot of times, you do have a lot of, It's like, hey, we'll stash them for a little bit, and but I just think that we're so used to over 60, 70, 80 years of, okay, we're going to start you here. Okay, you've succeeded at this level, we'll put you up a level. Okay, you're succeeding here, let's go here. Or if you want to really look at a meteoric rise, a couple years ago, Ryan Kirkering, he went from low A to the major leagues in a matter of months. But if you think about it, I don't think Major League Baseball, in my opinion, should be protecting college baseball. I think hockey, especially if you play junior hockey, you learn from, even when you're in juniors, you're maturing and you're away from your family, but you have this second family that's helping you out with playing hockey and all this other stuff as well. But, and I may be wording that wrong, but you get the idea. So hockey players are ready to go for the most part. Once in a while, you get a bad seed. Basketball, the players that are domestic, they're looking for the bag as soon as possible. They're not looking for, they're not looking at, oh, I'm ready. They think they're ready. Then when they end up going to the NBA, it's, oh, shit. But in baseball, even baseball, the way baseball is now, all the baseball stuff is privatized now. It's no longer, hey, I'm going to play for my neighborhood rec team. I'll play with them till I'm 13, and then when high school comes around, I'm going to play for the high school team. Or I'm going to try out for the high school team, even if I just played freshman ball. But you don't have. But the way things are now, parents are paying thousands upon thousands of dollars because little Johnny thinks he can play Major League Baseball, and they think he can play Major League Baseball. And I don't get everything here with this, but it seems like we're protecting college baseball a little bit too much here. Whereas the way things are, who the major league teams are, the elite of the elite of the high school batch. They go into the minor league system and move up. Now, you do have, for example, a Paul Skeens, who played first at Air Force and then transferred to LSU. He realized how good he was at baseball and said, I better get out of the Air Force, or I'm going to be stuck here for a couple of years after my eligibility's up. So a little bit, you realize that, hey, I got to make those moves. So I think, in a way, even though you have everything going on here, baseball's starting to get to the point where if you're a first round pick, you're starting to get expected to be making it to the majors quicker and quicker now. Now, in some regards, yeah, you should be there, but a lot of times basketball's the case. Football, you can argue this. You can argue this with baseball as well. It's about that second contract. Now, with baseball, I would say it's more about the arbitration years. Because if you do really well seasons 1 through 4, seasons 5 and 6 before you hit free agency, you're going to start making some major coin. But also, there's also ways that teams can say, you're not good enough. We're not offering you a new contract. We're not offering you arbitration. You're now a free agent. But you do have things in place right now where you can say, I am, it just seems like, like the service time manipulation that teams do in Major League Baseball. So you have that they've tried to combat that the union has combated over the years. So you have that. You have all this different stuff that's going on here. And, but I just think that I can see fixing the international corruption part of it. I don't know anything off the top of my head. I can't think of anything. But, yeah, there's issues with that. Like, for example, we'll get to Sauce Gardner, but like the one rumor with Albert Pujols was that, he wasn't 35, he was 41. A lot of times they say their age is 18, but they're really 16, but they're 18, so they can get into the league and start playing. But the birth certificates and things like that, things can get a little sketchy down there. At least I think. But now, I believe this is MLB that continues here. By creating a draft system centered around college-age players and making most college players eligible 1 year earlier, because if you do not go right from high school to minor league baseball or to the pros, let's just pull the minors and the majors, the pros. If you're not in that group, okay, if you're not in that group, you can't enter the draft for 3 more years. Because you would then go to college. You have an option. You go to college or you go sign that first contract and that signing bonus. So the only benefit is if you don't get drafted or you say, hey, I'm going to college, I'm not taking your offer. Well, that second contract or at second time in the draft, which would technically be the first, ends up being a year quicker. So you only have to spend 2 years in college. But the thing is, for some people who are ready to start the journey from the minors to the majors, they now have to wait 2 years. So, now, more players will benefit from both a college education and elite development environment while reaching professional baseball and ultimately the major leagues more quickly. There's a lot of college players that end up struggling because one thing you have to remember, not only you taking on the next step towards the majors, you're also now a lot of these college kids will go to these summer leagues where they play with wood bats. So they get a feel for playing with a wood bat as opposed to in college having aluminum bats. Because if you're watching a College World Series, you hear it all the time. Ping, ping, ping. Instead of the crack of the bat, it's ping. So you have to get used to the ball not jumping off the bat as much because you're using wood as opposed to metal. But so there's more than just what they're thinking of getting minor leaguers to the majors quicker. I don't think that's true. We believe these changes will strengthen college baseball and deepen fans' connection to the next generation of major league stars. We look forward to working with the MLB PA throughout the bargaining process to modernize the domestic amateur system in a way that benefits players, clubs, and fans. You know what benefits college baseball? Just playing the game. The way that everything's set up, if you feel like you're good enough to go to the pros, then go pro. Even if you're starting in low A. Even if you're in low A, go. Because you start the whole process. Now you got to wait for the process for 2 years. And I don't necessarily think players are going to develop. You know, but I just think this is all rhetoric just so that the MLB executives can get exactly what they want. And union's not going to go for this. And they really aren't. Now, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips touted the league proposal as a benefit to college baseball. Yeah, because they're making their game better at the expense of those that are, you know, but Phillips says it's been remarkable to watch the trajectory of college baseball, the considerable and recent growth we've seen in the quality of facilities. Yeah, because people are actually spending or giving money to these schools and giving money to these kids. Access to advanced technologies, player development resources, and benefits through both increased scholarships and revenue sharing have been significant. These investments are creating more opportunities for student athletes and providing additional pathways to develop the collegiate level before taking the next step to the professional ranks. The collective improvements are not only a positive for college baseball, but help strengthen the game for the betterment of all levels. I don't agree with it, but I just think that there are going to be some kids in high school that are ready to go pro. Also, you have an opportunity with a family, and you're allowed to have agents now. You can say, well, you're giving me a $500,000 signing bonus. I'm getting $750 in NIL money. Can you get close to $750? In terms of college baseball's fine. But the problem with NIL is we're seeing it in football. I mean, with everything that's going on. I mean, we can include the transfer portal in this as well. You got the haves and you got the have-nots. And guess what? If you're not in the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, you're basically a have-not. And occasionally, you do have a lower level school which breaks brackets, to use a basketball term. But I don't see anything wrong with the eligibility portion of it, especially in the United States, the North American portion of it. I can see international, but I don't know where this came. I think what they're trying to do is they're just trying to throw everything in the past that didn't work in the past, and they're trying to do it again because they figure, different people this time. Maybe somebody ends up saying yes to something that they didn't say yes to. It's like throwing 50 things against the wall and hoping one thing sticks. Because once you get your foot in the door, it's kind of. It's kind of like what I say when it comes to jobs. If you can get your foot in the door, do whatever. But But I don't believe that this is. I don't necessarily believe that this is something that very good. But you're going to see offers where they're probably until maybe middle to end of August, where the one side is so far out here and the other side is so far out here, there's no common ground whatsoever. Eventually, over time, things will start getting closer together. At least we think. Whether that happens, we'll see. But I don't necessarily think. If the collective bargaining agreement was up in about 3 weeks, I'd have zero confidence this would be done. I have like this much confidence right now, like maybe 0.5%. But that's only because I know that there's still 5.5 months, and being on the collective bargaining side of things, at least with going through labor law, going through my experiences when I was with Verizon, eventually you do get closer together. And in some cases, at least when I was working at Verizon, it got to a point where the last couple of rounds of negotiations, they did not agree. They agreed that no news would be coming out. And trust me, it sucked because, I heard a rumor this. Well, where'd you hear that? Oh, it was on the internet. We didn't send it. Did it say IBW or CWA? No. Somebody's starting with you. And that's why whenever I would say something with collective bargaining, that anything like that, I would always say, or anything that was my personal opinion as opposed to union speak or company speak, I said, this is me. This has nothing to do with the union, has nothing to do with the company. I feel like this is going to happen. And sometimes I was right. And like one time somebody said, well, how'd you know these people were getting let go? I said, playing around with numbers in my head. It had nothing to do with anything. So I will say this. We're probably going to see a lot of this extremism from one side, extremism from another, where there's nothing that they're going to agree on. If they're agreeing on anything, it's something so low in terms of getting things done that it's not even worth telling the media. But I think over time we are going to see some common ground eventually met. And who knows, it may not be till January or February when players are trying to get back and get ready for the next season. Because it's a matter of reaching that breaking point. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, the top players need more money, blah, 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 I'm out. Well, it's not necessarily about the Bryce Harpers, the Aaron Judges, the Shohei Ohtanis. It isn't the top players that are making the top money. It's not about them. It's about the guys that are eventually going to replace them. where they can make their fair share as well. Now everybody will say, well, I think $5 million is a fair share. Yeah, but you know, and the tax system sucks as well. But like you go to certain states like California, half your salary is going to taxes. So, but I would definitely say don't be surprised to see some commonalities as we get closer to December. It may take a while to get to the two sides actually agreeing to anything. And we may not hear anything for a while. We may just get a gag order where, oh, we're not talking to media. And somebody will be that anonymous person that breaks that gag order. But you're not going to see. This is probably going to be, if there's going to be an agreement on the collective bargaining agreement by December 1st, it may be minutes before the deal is made. And it may be that they extend for a week because, oh, we're this close to a deal. But I personally think that we are going to see potentially a last second. We may see a last second deal eventually. We may see a lockout, or some type of a work stoppage. But this is all part of the early stages where you come up with an outlandish thing. Well, we'll come up with an outlandish thing too, and then eventually you get closer. So now I did see this today, and of course, being in Philadelphia, where Adolis Garcia is out for the year, he's going to have surgery on his lat muscle or whatever he hurt. The Phillies need an outfield. Especially a right-handed hitting outfielder. Of course, Mike Trout, playing in Anaheim for his whole career, only had one playoff appearance, played a grand total of 3 games. Of course, everybody's saying, "Oh, he's going to opt out of his 10-5 clause and no trade clause and come to Philly." Well, some people say Atlanta. Well, right now, he cannot be traded because he got put on the injured list today because he has a right hamstring injury. So Trout suffered the injury while running to first base during Wednesday's victory against the Diamondbacks. He hit a home run and had 3 RBIs in that game. You say he does not have a timeline for his return, but he's hoping it'll be a short stay on the IL. I'm sure those that want to see if he would waive his no trade clause rights and 10-5 rights, I guarantee you they want to see, will he waive those rights? Whether he does or not, we'll see. Now, he is a 3-time MVP, 11-time All-Star. He's batting .234 this year with 17 home runs and 36 RBIs. Jose Siri will likely play center field in Trout's absence. But the injury bug strikes again. And the thing is, with the hamstring or something like that, that's, a couple of years ago, Mike Trout hurt his knee, meniscus, I think it was. He was out for the year. So, personally, if this was 4, 5, 6 years ago, I would say, yeah, do whatever you can to get him here, even though he was starting to show the injury bug was hitting him more and more. He was falling apart more and more, all that stuff. But he wanted to stay loyal to the Angels. And And I can understand that, but the thing is, you do want to win a championship eventually, right? But um, I would say right now, for the most part, I would not trade for him. First of all, you don't have much when it comes to what's in the minor leagues right now. And then you have Andrew Painter, who got sent down today. Yesterday, he was a dumpster fire for the last month and a half. And somebody on the Inquirer website today, or Inquirer, the newspaper site, whatever, they did say today that this is a Roy Halladay moment for him, which is an interesting poll. Okay, this is by David Murphy. So the subheader is "Falling is easy. The hard work is what comes next with the demotion to AAA. It's an endeavor upon which Painter must embark, much like Halladay did at his age." So David Murphy says, somebody needs to tell Andrew Painter to remember one number, 10.64. That was Halladay's ERA in 67 2/3 inning as a 23-year-old big leaguer. It was nearly 3 runs higher than the ERA that just earned Painter demotion to AAA Lehigh Valley. Now, Halladay ended up spending his 24th birthday facing Class A minor league hitters in Dunedin, Florida. As the old saying goes, it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce. But at least with Painter, he's only going to AAA. So he's only a short ride on the Turnpike, the Northeast Extension, from playing here again. But, and I said this on my Facebook today or yesterday. I'm going to read it word for word from the way that I said it. And this was right after the game, before they announced they were sending him down. I said, send him down. Give him specific instructions and thoughts so that you don't completely lose him. Even the top pitchers pitch like shit early in their careers. As I mentioned, Roy Halladay. He ended up a Hall of Famer. He did what he had to do to get that job done. Now it's a matter of taking the demotion in stride, knowing what you have to work on, rebuild yourself so you can get back in there. Now, he was kind of struggling at AAA because remember, he did have that Tommy John surgery. And, sometimes you're okay right away, and sometimes it takes even longer than the year that it takes to rehab that injury to get yourself back on the mound. Now, a perfect example I can give you is Noah Syndergaard. He was throwing near 100 miles an hour and his elbow gave out. He never pitched the same again. But you have some pitchers, I'll even throw in Shohei Ohtani. He had Tommy John. He's pitching like a beast now. It's just that no matter how far we advance in medicine, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't have a successful surgery. Now, doctors will always tell you, oh, he had successful surgery. The teams will say that. But that's successful in the fact that we're able to complete the surgery, he didn't die on us, things like that. But the real success is 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Are you throwing close to the same speed as before? Is your elbow still strong? Are you this? Are you that? Because the thing is, elbows are blowing out more and more because, oh, by the way, let's go back to the way Little League is. It's no longer about learning how to pitch and going in and out and up and down and changing speeds and not going too fast. Now it's, let's see what number we can get on the speed gun. That's what we turned into. And that mentality has ruined some careers. And in some cases here, hopefully Andrew Painter's not one of them, where it's like, oh shit, I got to learn how to pitch now because I can't throw 102 miles an hour anymore, or whatever Andrew Painter topped the speed gun at. I'm throwing 92. I got to learn how to go in and out and all that. All that stuff that you should have been learning ages 8 through 13, 8 through 16, 8 through 17, you're now learning at 24, 25, 26 because, oh, after that surgery, I'm not throwing 101 miles an hour anymore. I'm throwing 97. And the one thing I will say about, for example, Aroldis Chapman, who's never had an elbow injury, I don't think, because he's a freak. One thing I said about Aroldis Chapman is, I wish I had an arm like his where I can lose 2, 3, 4, 5 miles an hour off my fastball and still be throwing 100. But I think especially with younger kids that are still part of your team's future, you have to say, hey, we want you to work on certain things. We're trying to get your confidence back. We're trying to do everything we can to get you back up here as soon as possible. But we want you, and even if we have to promote somebody to start a couple of games and it's not you, don't take it as something as a punishment. Because we're doing what we can to get you back on track. Because that's what this is about. Now, the one thing I would say is teach him about Roy Halladay and what he had to do to get back to the majors. And, oh, by the way, ended up being a Hall of Famer. Don't worry about Hall of Fame. Don't worry about getting to the majors. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Worry about that next start. Worry about getting yourself back on track. Because little by little, it's about getting back on track. It's not about getting to the majors as quickly as you can again. It's about making sure that if we bring you up, it's because we know you can be an effective starter in this league. And there's no shame in being sent down like this, even if you are a young player. There is no shame in this. teams are seeing something that is letting them hit you like crazy. Let's work on a couple different things. It may be that you have a bad start in AAA. Well, you had the bad start because we were working on A, B, C, and D, and C and D did not work. That led to that. So let's work on these things. And even if you take them for the rest of the year in AAA, let's work on one component, get that fixed, work on the next component, work on the next component, so on and so forth. That's all you got to do. Nothing more than that. But, but we'll see what happens with him. So, also, and by the way, Mexico defeated South Korea 1-0. So Mexico is the first team that's in the knockout round, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So they're 2-0. One last story here, and this is something that could be considered stupid shit I saw worthy, but I'm not classifying it as such. Now, I mentioned with minor league, with a lot of players that are from the Caribbean area. A lot of times these players, you realize, wait, this guy isn't 23, he's 26, or vice versa. So their birth date is fudged. Now, I have no clue what happened with Sauce Gardner, but he's saying he's 24, not 25. So the rest of the world seems uncertain about exactly how old Sauce Gardner is. But Gardner has no questions about that matter. During the recent back and forth with reporters about his leadership role as a veteran defender, he pointed out he's still pretty young. So whatever the question was, whatever the banter was back and forth, he said, I'm 24, by the way. That might have surprised a few people because in many corners of the internet, Gardner's listed as 25. And they said on here, and especially how I would phrase this as well. I mean, this is exactly how I would have written it. So Stephen Holder must have gotten into my brain or something. Somewhere along the way, it became accepted as fact that Gardner was born on August 31st, 2000, which would make him 25, soon to be 26. Now, it says as much on a number of online references, including his profiles on ESPN, Pro Football Focus, and Yahoo Sports. But it turns out he's actually born August 31st, 2001. Like he said, he's 24. The Colts website and the NFL site reflect his 2001 birthday. Gardner said, it's crazy I'm saying this once again. Gardner said last week as the Colts wrapped up their final offseason practice. He later told The Athletic that he has always specified his birthday as being in 2001 and said his driver license confirms it. Now, I know this happened a lot when I was in Little League. A lot of people say, oh, he ain't 12, he's 15. Oh, yeah, I got my birth certificate. Mom's got my birth certificate. You want to play fuck around, find out? Even though fuck around, find out wasn't verbial here. So he told The Athletic, when it comes to paperwork and everything I've signed, it all says 2001. So I don't know how it got messed up unless people just got it straight from Google. Which is possible because, do you believe everything on the internet? But But what's interesting here is Gardner's going to be entering his 5th season, but he's still as young as other players who are beginning their NFL careers. LA Chargers first-round pick Akeem Mesidor turned 25 in April and hasn't played his first snap in the NFL. Now, I think the cutoff for starting elementary school is September 1st or August 31st, so he just fit under there. So I think that is why they're saying 24-25, because he's right on that deadline. Now, back when I was in school, back when I was going in school, I think the deadline was November 1st or even January 1st. Because I remember I started as a 5-year-old and I turned 6 2 weeks into the school year. But when it comes to everything now, everything is September 1st or August 31st. So if I were born mid-September like I was, but let's say I was born in 2020, I'd actually be going into kindergarten if I'm not mistaken. But it is what it is. So, but that's a interesting story, a strange story, and I guess it could be stupid shit I saw, but whatever. So just a reminder, Close Picks winners, that's on QandARacing.com. Tomorrow's race will be from Churchill Downs. Hopefully I can get a winner because I've had some tough beats this week. Also eligible will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on these same channels. We'll be looking at the Ohio Derby, and we will get you guys some winners. And I will be back on Monday at 9 o'clock. Mike will be back, and hopefully we'll not get ourselves into trouble. But I do want to say this. I do appreciate each and every one of you, and hope everybody has a great night, great weekend if you don't see me Saturday morning. And if I don't see you on Saturday morning for Also Eligible, hopefully I see you Monday for the next edition of the Joe Quill Show. So hope everybody has a great night. I'll see you guys in the winter.